On July 23, 2013, an experienced hiker vanished without a trace from one of the most famous hiking trails in America, the Appalachian Trail. The incident would later become one of the most bewildering mysteries in hiking history. Her name was Geraldine Largay, a 68-year-old retired nurse from Tennessee. Despite her age, she was in good health and possessed a burning passion for hiking. In fact, she had hiked long trails near her home before, but this time, she was taking on a massive challenge. A thru-hike of the Appalachian Trail, a trek spanning over 2,200 miles from Springer Mountain in Georgia to Mount Katahdin in Maine. She embarked on this journey with her friend Jane Lee. However, circumstances later forced Gerry to continue alone. On July 22nd, fellow hikers last saw her at Poplar Ridge Shelter on the trail. Then, suddenly and inexplicably, Gerry vanished. What happened next has confounded experienced hikers, wilderness experts, and law enforcement officials for years. Gerry, an experienced hiker herself, seemed to disappear into thin air in broad daylight. She had left the trail briefly, a routine practice for hikers, only to never return. In a rugged wilderness area known as the 100-mile wilderness in Maine, where the paths twist and turn through dense forests and across high ridges, Gerry was swallowed by the vast expanse. The area is known for its difficulty and the ease with which one can lose their way. But the abrupt nature of Gerry's disappearance was unprecedented. Despite the immense search efforts launched immediately after she was reported missing, Gerry could not be found. She seemed to have vanished, leaving no trace behind into the wilderness. The days turned into weeks, then months, and finally years. Gerry was still missing, her fate unknown. How did an experienced hiker, familiar with the terrain, vanish so suddenly? And why was she unable to be found despite the extensive search efforts? A thru-hike of the mighty Appalachian Trail, which stretches over 2,200 miles through 14 states, from Georgia to Maine. Born and raised in Tennessee, she was a retired Air Force nurse with a love for the outdoors. She had spent years hiking long trails near her home, but none could rival the Appalachian Trail. This journey wasn't simply an adventurous hobby. It was Gerry's dream. It represented the ultimate test of her endurance, her courage, and her passion for hiking. The decision to undertake the thru-hike wasn't made on a whim. Gerry and her hiking companion, Jane Lee, had prepared for this journey meticulously. They pored over maps, scrutinized the route, and carefully packed the supplies they'd need for the long journey. Gear, clothing, food, and navigational tools. Everything was planned and packed with precision. Their hike began in late spring at Springer Mountain in Georgia, the southernmost point of the Appalachian Trail. This time of the year was chosen strategically. Starting too early could mean facing the remnants of winter in the southern mountains, while a later start might mean confronting early winter in the north. The first few weeks on the trail were filled with a sense of newness and adventure. The trail led them through diverse landscapes, over rocky peaks, alongside rushing rivers, across verdant farmlands, and through dense, whispering forests. With every passing mile, the bond between Gerry and the trail grew stronger. Despite the initial enthusiasm, however, the trail's challenges were relentless. It wasn't just the physical strain of hiking up and down mountains, across creeks, and through rugged terrains. It was also the constant exposure to the elements, the need to find suitable camping spots each night, and the psychological test of spending long periods in solitude. Yet, Gerry seemed to embrace it all. Her trail name, Inchworm, reflected her determination. Like the creature, she moved slowly but relentlessly, covering around 10 miles per day, savoring the nature around her. Tragedy struck when Jane had to exit the trail due to a personal emergency. It was a massive blow to Gerry. They had started the hike as a team, and Jane's sudden departure left a void. But Gerry, resolute and tenacious, decided to continue alone. The trail, after all, was as much a personal journey as it was a physical challenge. Gerry was a stickler for communication. Despite being alone, she wasn't entirely cut off from civilization. She kept in touch with her husband, George, updating him about her progress and coordinating for resupplies at pre-decided locations. Their meetings were brief, but they provided much-needed emotional support to Gerry. As July approached, Gerry had made significant progress. She had covered more than 1,000 miles, reaching the heart of the Appalachian Trail, the 100-mile wilderness in Maine. This section of the trail was infamous for its remote and challenging terrain, with minimal contact with civilization. But Gerry had come too far to back down now. As she set foot into the wilderness, little did she know that this would be the last leg of her journey. Her disappearance a few days later would send ripples through the hiking community, marking the beginning of one of the Appalachian Trail's most baffling mysteries. After saying goodbye to fellow hikers at the Poplar Ridge shelter, Gerry left to continue her journey. The last sighting of Gerry was on July 22nd. The morning of July 23rd was expected to be just another day on the trail. However, it unfolded differently. Gerry's usual routine involved leaving the trail briefly to take care of nature's calls, but this time, something went wrong. She couldn't find her way back to the trail despite it being close. While it's difficult to say exactly how Gerry lost her way, this type of incident isn't entirely unprecedented. The Appalachian Trail is known for its rugged terrain, which can be confusing and disorienting even for experienced hikers. The Appalachian Trail Conservancy, responsible for maintaining the trail, reroutes sections of it regularly due to various reasons such as flooding or ecological restoration projects. As a result, a hiker can unexpectedly encounter a junction where the old path meets the new. While the Conservancy makes efforts to block off the old paths and remove the old blazing, it's not always possible to erase all signs of them. Consequently, hikers can accidentally find themselves on an old path, leading them off course. It is plausible that Gerry faced a similar situation. Alarmed at finding herself lost, Gerry tried reaching out for help. She attempted to text her husband George at about 11 a.m., saying,
"In some trouble. Got off trail to go to BR. Now lost. Can you call AMC to see if a trail maintainer can help me? Somewhere north of Woods Road. XOX."
But the harsh reality of the wilderness hit hard. The text never got sent due to poor cell reception in the remote area. Undeterred, Gerry climbed to higher ground, trying to catch a signal. She attempted to send the text 10 more times over the next hour and a half, but to no avail. As evening approached, she decided to make camp for the night, hoping to reorient herself in the morning light. Her ordeal continued the next day. Gerry made another attempt to reach out for help, but her text sent went undelivered. It read,
"Lost since yesterday. Off trail 3 or 4 miles. Call police for what to do, please. XOX."
Adding to her predicament, Gerry had lost her GPS tracker that she purchased before her thru-hike. Whether it got left behind in a hotel room or a shelter along the trail, we'll never know. What we do know is that without it, Gerry was even more vulnerable in the wilderness. Meanwhile, George was waiting at the Route 27 crossing for Gerry to show up for their scheduled meetup. The hours ticked by and Gerry didn't appear. A sense of unease began to set in. With no word from his wife and her failure to show up at their planned rendezvous, George was left with a sinking feeling that something was terribly wrong. However, at this point, Gerry was not officially missing. The delay could have been due to many factors: an injury slowing her down, an unexpected detour, or even a simple miscalculation of the time it would take to reach the meeting point. But as we now know, the reality was much more dire. The woman known to her fellow hikers as Inchworm for her slow but steady progress on the trail is now missing. The efforts to locate Geraldine Largay started on July 24, 2013, the day after she was due to meet her husband George at the Route 27 crossing. When Gerry failed to show, George became increasingly worried and decided it was time to raise the alarm. A missing person report was filed, and soon, a massive search operation was launched. The Maine Warden Service, responsible for law enforcement in Maine's forests and wilderness areas, led the search. They were joined by several other agencies, including state police, national park rangers, and fire departments. The search crews scoured the area where Gerry was last seen, fanning out across the densely wooded landscape in a desperate race against time. In a testament to the scale of the operation, even aircraft were deployed. Planes and helicopters crisscrossed the area from above, their pilots peering down through the dense canopy of trees in the hope of spotting any signs of Gerry. Their eyes were trained to look for flashes of color amidst the greenery that could indicate the presence of a tent, a backpack, or clothing. But despite their best efforts, the aerial search yielded no results. Back on the ground, search teams were employing another vital resource in the hunt for Gerry: search dogs. These specially trained dogs are often the unsung heroes in such operations, using their exceptional sense of smell to track a person's scent, even in the most challenging conditions. The dogs, coupled with their handlers, followed trails, searched side trails, and swept through dense undergrowth, all in an attempt to pick up Gerry's scent. Still, their determined efforts didn't bring them any closer to finding Gerry. Meanwhile, the search coordinators were also trying to piece together a clearer picture of the events leading up to Gerry's disappearance. They interviewed hikers who had crossed paths with Gerry, hoping that these interactions might shed light on her state of mind, her plans, or any difficulties she may have been experiencing. One significant piece of information came from Jane Lee, Gerry's initial hiking partner, who had left the trail due to a personal emergency. Jane revealed that Gerry often struggled with navigation, even with a map and compass. This was concerning, as it suggested that Gerry could have easily become disoriented once she lost sight of the trail. To compound the challenges, the weather was not cooperating. Heavy rain descended on the area around the time the search was in full swing. The rain not only made the physically demanding task of searching even more difficult, but it could also have washed away any traces or tracks left by Gerry. It was a race not just against time, but against the elements. But through all this, not a single trace of Gerry was found. Despite the extensive resources dedicated to the search, the vastness and ruggedness of the wilderness proved to be formidable obstacles. Even as days turned into weeks, Gerry remained missing. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, swallowed up by the wilderness. This baffling lack of results prompted theories and speculation. Some wondered if Gerry had deliberately gone off the trail, while others speculated about the possibility of foul play. However, there was no concrete evidence to support any of these theories. All that was certain was that Gerry, a woman who had embarked on a journey of a lifetime, had mysteriously disappeared. As the search continued with diminishing hopes, the question remained: where was Gerry Largay? Two years later, in October 2015, the mystery of Gerry's disappearance took a dramatic turn when her body was finally found. The remains were discovered near the Reddington Township, close to the Reddington Stream, a mere 3 miles from where she had last been seen. This terrain is rugged and remote, making it a fitting place for survival training, but a daunting environment for a lost hiker. But here's where it gets baffling. Gerry's campsite was less than 2 miles from the Maine Appalachian Trail, and a little more walking would have brought her to a clear logging road that led to lodgings. In the other direction, dense woods gave way to open woods with good visibility after about 60-70 yards. Why then did Gerry not leave her camp to seek help? This puzzle deepened when it was revealed that search dogs came within 100 yards of her campsite on at least 3 occasions, but failed to detect her presence. Moreover, given the search operations in her proximity, it's strange that Gerry was unable to hear the searchers' activity or their calls. Was she too exhausted from hunger and thirst to respond or venture out of her campsite? Did the dense woodland in her camouflage tent make her undetectable? These questions bring home the harsh reality of how treacherous and disorienting the wilderness can be. Evidence at her campsite provided some insights. Gerry had set up a tent, constructed a bedding area with small trees and pine needles to stay dry, and had tied a space blanket between branches for cover. Near the site were the remains of attempted fires, as nearby trees had been charred black. All these signs pointed to a grim and desperate fight for survival. But the most heartbreaking find was her journal, where she documented her ordeal, even leaving a note for when her body would be eventually found. But let's delve deeper into the mysteries. One crucial point of confusion is Gerry's missing GPS tracker. It's a useful tool for any hiker, especially one on a challenging route like the Appalachian Trail. Yet Gerry seemed to have lost this important device at some point during her hike. This, coupled with her reported difficulty in navigation, could explain why she was so disoriented after going off. Another question that arises is why she got lost so quickly after straying from the trail. ATC reroutes several paths every year due to environmental factors such as flooding or ecological restoration projects. They attempt to block off the old paths, but sometimes faded markings can still cause confusion. Was it possible that Gerry followed an old, redirected trail leading her further away? One theory suggests that the very remoteness and inaccessibility of the area, characteristics that made it ideal for survival training, also played a part in concealing Gerry's presence. The story of Geraldine Largay is a tragic one, but it's also filled with deep-seated mysteries and questions, which make it a confounding case. In the end, despite the confounding circumstances surrounding Gerry's disappearance, we are left with the poignant reality of an adventurer who loved hiking and the great outdoors. It's a stark reminder of the power and unpredictability of nature, the importance of preparation and awareness when hiking, particularly in the backcountry, and of course, the indomitable human spirit that persists in the face of overwhelming odds. And as we conclude, we remember Geraldine Largay, not just for the mystery surrounding her disappearance and death, but for her adventurous spirit that led her to set out on a journey of a lifetime on the Appalachian Trail. Stay tuned for more next time. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up icon. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications for new videos.